Hey guys, what is up? My name is Lynon and welcome to the Jersey Zone. So yesterday was the first day in free agency and a whole bunch of stuff went down, and I want to talk about some of the stuff in this video here. I'm not going to talk about every single signing because there were so many and I just wouldn't be able to have the time to do it. And I honestly was thinking about not even doing this video at all, but one team in particular really confused me with some of the moves that they did, and that was the Carolina Hurricanes. I'm just very confused with some of the moves they made this offseason, and I want to talk about them in this video, but I'm going to leave them all the way to the end of the video because of the fact that I think I have the most to say about them. So in the first half of this video, I'll talk just a little bit about some signings that I found a little bit intriguing. The first one actually happened 2 days ago, the day before free agency, and that was Alexander Ovechkin re-signing with the Washington Capitals for 5 years at $9.5 million per season. Now, we all kind of knew he was going to re-sign. The only kind of threat was maybe he would go back to the KHL and finish his career off in the KHL, but I always kind of thought he was going to re-sign. Now, the big implication with this signing is obviously, is he going to pass Gretzky's goal total? It is possible, but it's going to be tough. If he is going to pass it, he's going to need 33 goals on average per season, so it is a lot of goals per season, but honestly, I actually think he can do it. If anyone is going to do it, it is going to be Alexander Ovechkin. I definitely still think he's capable of reaching that 33 goal mark per season. Even in his older age here, he still has an amazing shot, and honestly, you can bank him for like 20 goals on the power play of him just sitting there in that one spot and then his teammates passing it to him. Like, he really doesn't have to do a whole lot on the power play except for stand there, wait for the pass to come, and blast it, and he'll get a goal almost every single time there. So I do think it's very, very possible for him to hit that 33 goal mark, and I really, really do hope he hits it. I want him to pass Gretzky's goal total because I think it'll just be a very neat accomplishment there, so I really hope he does get it done. Now moving on to Calgary, who are my second favorite team. I'm just going to talk about one of their signings today, although they did make a couple of other moves, but they signed Blake Coleman today for a 6-year, $4.9 million cap hit. Now, I kind of like this deal a lot, and I don't at the same time. I think it is a little bit of an overpayment with Blake Coleman, but that being said, he was playing on the third line for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think with the Flames, he'll play a little bit higher up, probably second line minutes. So I think in playing those second line minutes, if he does actually get those second line minutes, I think he'll be worth that $4.9 million cap hit. And even if he doesn't play those second line minutes, I still think it's kind of worth it. I really do like Blake Coleman a lot. He's a really hard worker. He scores some amazing goals sometimes. He's had like 3 one-handed goals in his career so far, which is pretty crazy, but I think he's a very skilled player, and I really do hope it works out for him in Calgary because I like the Flames and I like Blake Coleman, so I think hopefully it'll be a pretty good match there. Now let's move on to some goaltender signings, starting off with Philadelphia, who signed Martin Jones for 1 year, $2 million cap hit, which is very, very interesting because now you have Martin Jones, who has not really played that well in the past couple of seasons, and Carter Hart, who had a pretty bad last half of the season. So it's going to be very interesting to see if Carter Hart can bounce back from that kind of poor season or poor last half of the season. I do think he will, and I do think he is still a pretty good goaltender. I know some people are kind of iffy on that, but I do think he'll bounce back from that last kind of rough patch of the season there. But for Martin Jones himself, it's going to be interesting to see kind of how he plays, especially which I assume he's going to be in a backup role to Carter Hart there. So if he is in that backup role, will he maybe play a little bit better with a little bit less pressure on him? Is that the issue, is the pressure itself, or is he just not really a good goaltender anymore? I'm not really too sure about that, so I guess we'll have to see for the season here, but it's definitely an interesting move for the Philadelphia Flyers, who have made some interesting moves this offseason for sure. And then moving on to the Boston Bruins, who signed Linus Ullmark to 4 years, $5 million per season. Now, the Boston Bruins did add a couple of more players yesterday, like Nick Foligno and a couple others that I can't quite remember at the moment, but I am just going to focus in on Linus Ullmark for this video. But this tandem for the Boston Bruins, I actually really like a lot. So you have Ullmark and then Swayman as the backup, and Swayman played pretty well for the Boston Bruins last season. At like the tail end of the season, he kind of ended up replacing Yaroslav Halak as the backup there, and in the few games that he did play, he played pretty well. So I do like that tandem of Ullmark and then Swayman. And on top of that, Rask still might even come back to the Boston Bruins this season, although he is injured right now and he's a UFA, so he isn't still signed by the Boston Bruins. He still actually might come back into the system for the Boston Bruins there. I'm not quite sure when his timeline is and when he is expected to be ready and healthy again. And I know there was talks about him retiring as well at the end of the season, so maybe he'll kind of gauge his options by the time that he actually is healthy, if he wants to go back to playing or if he just wants to decide to retire, whatever it may be. But if he does decide to keep playing with the Boston Bruins and re-sign with the Boston Bruins, then you have a tandem of Ullmark and Rask, which is like, that's a really, really good tandem. That is extremely strong. So the fact that they add Ullmark, the Boston Bruins are a little bit scary in net for sure. Now, since Ullmark left Buffalo, let's look at Buffalo's situation there in goal. So for a little while there, they didn't have any goalie signed to a contract, or at least any NHL goalie signed to a contract, but late last night, they ended up signing 2 goaltenders, Craig Anderson and Aaron Dell. both for 1 year, 750 grand, so league minimum for both of them. And it's a very interesting tandem that they have there, because honestly, I thought Craig Anderson was probably going to retire after last season, and both goaltenders didn't really play a whole lot last season. I mean, Anderson was kind of picked up last minute by the Washington Capitals because of the fact that Henrik Lundqvist had a heart surgery and everything like that, and he had his heart problems. And then Aaron Dell was the third string goaltender for the Leafs. He ended up getting waived, and then he got claimed by the New Jersey Devils, who also was their third string goaltender. So both goaltenders didn't really play a whole lot, and it's going to be very interesting to see kind of how they move that tandem now, because of the fact that since both goaltenders didn't play a whole lot, is Craig Anderson going to be your starter, or is Aaron Dell going to be your starter? It's going to be very interesting to see what they do. Or are you just going to split the net evenly? I'm not quite sure what they're going to do there, but I'm not super confident in that tandem for the Buffalo Sabres. I do like Craig Anderson and Aaron Dell. I like them both. I think Aaron Dell can be a decent backup goaltender, but I don't know how well he's going to be if they decide to give him starter minutes, or if they just decide to go with 1A, 1B. I'm not quite too sure if he's kind of able to do that, but I do think he is a capable backup goaltender. But then you have Craig Anderson, who is definitely not in his prime, although he played decently, I thought, in the kind of few games that he played with the Washington Capitals in the playoffs there when he had to come in. Maybe it'll be a decent tandem. I'm not quite too sure, but either way, I don't think Buffalo cares a whole lot because of the fact that, well, I don't think Buffalo is going to try that hard next season. I think they're going to go tanking pretty hard, especially if they end up trading Jack Eichel as well, which hasn't quite happened yet. Now, let's move on to the Leafs, who are my favorite team, but I'm not going to talk a whole lot about them just because of the fact that I probably am going to talk about them a little bit more in another video at some point. So let's just quickly touch on the fact that they signed Mrazek for a 3-year, $3.8 million cap hit, which I actually like that deal a decent amount. It's maybe a little bit more than you want to spend on Peter Mrazek, who does have some injury issues. So that's maybe a little bit of a concern for the Maple Leafs, but if Campbell and Mrazek stay healthy, you have a $5.8 million kind of goaltending tandem who is a pretty good tandem. Like Campbell and Mrazek, I think both can kind of share the net and be a 1A, 1B. So if they both stay healthy, I think this is a great tandem for the Maple Leafs, and I do like that a lot, but it is going to be interesting to see if Mrazek actually can stay healthy. And then they also signed David Kampf for a 2-year, $1.5 million season cap hit. Now, when this deal was first released, I saw a ton of Leafs fans kind of like freaking out and saying how bad of a deal this is, and it's way too much money for David Kampf. And I saw a whole bunch of charts kind of pop up, and it made it seem like David Kampf is really not that great of a player. Now, from what I saw when I watched a few Chicago games, and the few Chicago games that I have watched over the past couple of seasons, I really didn't think he was that great of a player. So when I saw these charts, I was like, maybe I'm not really remembering him correctly or anything like that. But after that, I did see a lot of Hawks fans kind of coming out and backing up David Kampf and saying that he is a decent player. He's a fourth line guy, but he's a PK specialist. He's very good at faceoffs and winning those faceoffs. He's not going to score you a ton of goals, but he's a great defensive center. And if that is the case, and that's how he plays in Toronto, then that's perfectly okay to me. Maybe it's a little bit more than you want to pay, but that is how it's going to go in free agency. So I'm okay with this deal. I think the Leafs did all right in free agency, but like I said, I might touch on like more of their moves a little bit later on in another video. Now, speaking of the Leafs, let's look at a player that they lost, Zach Hyman, who went to the Edmonton Oilers on a 7-year, $5.5 million cap hit. Now, I absolutely love Hyman. I'm going to miss him so much. I don't know if there's a single Leafs fan who wouldn't say the same thing and doesn't absolutely love Hyman. Oilers fans are going to absolutely love Hyman. He's going to be a great player for you guys. The only thing that does worry me is like the last 3 years of that contract. With the way Zach Hyman plays, I'm not sure how well it'll actually age, but for the first couple of seasons, I think he'll be phenomenal, and he'll be worth that $5.5 million for sure. And then they also signed Tyson Barrie to a 3-year, $4.5 million cap hit, which I actually don't think is all that bad. He's a really good offensive defenseman, Tyson Barrie is, but other than that, on the defensive end, he is not good at all. He is a really, really poor defensive defenseman. But if you can find a really good partner for him and find a really good defensive partner for him, I think he actually isn't that bad, especially at that $4.5 million cap hit. They did also sign Cody Ceci to a 4-year, $3.25 million cap hit, which I don't know about that one, man. I'll be honest, I am not a huge fan of that move by the Edmonton Oilers. The Edmonton Oilers have made some iffy moves this offseason, in my opinion, but we'll see how well they work out. But with the Cody Ceci deal, I'm not a huge fan of it personally. I know he had a really good year in Pittsburgh last season, but I don't know if that's the Cody Ceci we'll actually see. On the Leafs and the Ottawa Senators, I really don't think he looked that great, but maybe on the Edmonton Oilers, he'll kind of keep up that pace that he did with the Pittsburgh Penguins. We'll have to see, but for me personally, I really don't like that Cody Ceci deal. I don't think it is a great move. And then they did also trade Ethan Bear for Warren Foegele. I do like that they got Warren Foegele. I'm not sure if trading Ethan Bear was a great move by the Edmonton Oilers. Personally, I probably would have stuck with Bear instead of signing Ceci, but that's just me personally. But in saying that, I do like the fact that they did get Warren Foegele. I think he is a decent kind of bottom six player there, and I think he'll be important for the Edmonton Oilers there, so we'll see kind of how that goes. Now let's finally talk about Carolina. So they have made some very interesting moves this offseason so far, and I'll be honest, I am not really a huge fan of, well, a lot of them. I really don't think they've improved their team, and I really like their team a lot more last season. I think they have cut a lot of players from their roster that really helped them last season. Now let's start off with a move they made a couple of days ago, trading Nedeljkovic to the Detroit Red Wings for a third-round pick and Jonathan Bernier. Now the Carolina Hurricanes didn't even sign Jonathan Bernier. They let him walk, and the New Jersey Devils picked him up and signed him to a 2-year, $4.1 million cap hit per season. I think that deal is maybe a little bit more than you want to spend on Jonathan Bernier, but that being said, he still had some good seasons with the Detroit Red Wings, and they were the Detroit Red Wings. Like, looking at his stats in comparison to what the team was, Jonathan Bernier had some pretty good last couple of years, so I can kind of get it a little bit why the New Jersey Devils maybe gave him that much, or maybe he was looking to get that much. But anyways, back to the Carolina Hurricanes. So they basically just got a third-round pick for Nedeljkovic. Now, I understand goaltenders usually don't get that much, especially when they are an unrestricted free agent, which I believe he was. Maybe he was a restricted free agent. Either way, he was a free agent at the end of the season. He was looking for a new deal, so I understand that usually goaltenders don't get that much, but I really don't understand why they didn't just sign him. It's not like he had a bad season with the Carolina Hurricanes. I don't really think he was asking for a ton. He was only asking for a 3-year deal at $3.5 million, which, in my personal opinion, from what I saw of Nedeljkovic, I would have signed him to that, and he actually ended up signing a 3-year, $3 million deal with the Detroit Red Wings, but I just really don't get why they wouldn't sign him to that $3.5 million contract, especially with how they spent their money on goaltenders. So they got Frederik Andersen for 2 years at $4.5 million, and then Antti Ranta for 2 years at $2 million. Now, I'm not saying both goaltenders are bad, because I do think both goaltenders are extremely good. Antti Ranta is a fantastic goaltender, but man, he never stays healthy. He is injured every single season, like almost the entire season. That man is never healthy. If he can stay healthy, that's a great pickup. That is a solid pickup for the Carolina Hurricanes if he can stay healthy, but he really hasn't shown that he can in the past couple of seasons. And same thing with Frederik Andersen. Frederik Andersen has been injured the past couple of seasons, and he's been not really that great the past couple of seasons either. And I do think majority of that is because of the fact that he has been injured. It's not because he is a poor goaltender. I think he is still a really good goaltender, but the fact is they picked up two goaltenders who have a long history of very bad injuries and injuries that have lasted for a long kind of portions of the season. So I could very easily see a point in the season where both Ranta and Frederik Andersen are hurt and they have to go to their third string goaltender, which is, I don't know if that's a great move. I just tried looking up who their third string goaltender would be, and I can't even kind of find who that would be. When I looked it up, Cap Friendly had a couple of goalies in their kind of non-roster goaltender section, so I'm not quite sure who that would be, and I haven't heard of any of those names in there. So either way, I am iffy on this move. If they can both stay healthy, if Ranta and Andersen can both stay healthy, it is a great move, and I think it works really well for them. But I am not sure if that will happen. And if it doesn't happen, I kind of think the Carolina Hurricanes are screwed. I really think they needed to keep one of the three goaltenders that they had, whether that be Nedeljkovic, Mrazek, or Reimer. I think they should have kept at least one of those guys. And then they traded away Jake Bean for a second-round pick, which I found a little strange. I actually thought he was going to be the one that the Seattle Kraken took in the expansion draft, but they gave him away anyways, which I was a little bit shocked at. And then they let Dougie Hamilton walk, and he ended up signing a 7-year, $9 million a season with the New Jersey Devils. So they kind of let two guys walk, and they both went to New Jersey apparently. But I think that's really going to hurt their blue line a lot. I like Dougie Hamilton on that blue line. Now, I know that 7 years at $9 million is a lot to pay for a guy, but I do think he's worth that. I mean, he's a very good offensive defenseman. He does kind of have his defensive struggles at times, but I think that's kind of worth it for what he brings to the table. I think he is worth that $9 million cap hit. And I think I saw that the Carolina Hurricanes only offered him $6.2 million, which is way too low for him. I think that's a huge low ball. And then on top of all of those moves, which I think are pretty questionable, they signed Tony DeAngelo. Now, whether you agree with Tony DeAngelo's politics or not, I'm going to push that to the side in this video. I'm not really going to talk about it a whole lot. I don't agree with him at all. I do not support the stuff that he says, but I'm going to push that to the side because of the fact that if you look at Tony DeAngelo and look what happened with him on the Rangers, I think that is a huge kind of warning sign as to why signing him isn't a good idea. Because of the fact that Tony DeAngelo is a good hockey player. He is. He's a very good offensive defenseman. Defensive-wise, he's not really that great, but he is a really good offensive defenseman. In saying that, there was a tweet by Jay Fresh, I believe. I'll put the tweet up on screen, but he basically said that Tony DeAngelo is a really good offensive defenseman, and the fact that the New York Rangers bought him out just shows how much of a prick that he actually is. And I thought that was really funny because it's kind of true, because he is a really good offensive defenseman. But if he is that much of a locker room cancer, that just says so much, and I really don't get why the Carolina Hurricanes would bring that locker room cancer into their locker room. Like, I don't understand that at all. It's kind of obvious that he's really not that popular with teammates, so I really just don't understand why they would bring him in. And then on top of that, the Canes even had a ton of people calling their offices saying that they were going to cancel their season tickets if they signed Tony DeAngelo, and the Canes knew it wasn't really a good PR move, and they still went with it anyways. They still just said, screw it, whatever, we're going to do it. It's just really confusing. I really don't understand it at all. There's a lot of things about the Carolina Hurricanes that I'm just very confused about. I really liked their team last year, and I thought they had a really good shot at winning the cup if they made just little tweaks to their roster and made little improvements to their roster, but they changed a lot, and I really don't know how that's going to work out for them. It's going to be very interesting to see. One thing, though, that I do really like that the Carolina Hurricanes did is they added Josh Leivo. I really like Josh Leivo a lot, so I'm glad that they did that. I mean, he is just a bottom six guy. I think he has a lot of skill, but man, that guy is snake bitten. He has a hard time scoring goals, but I think he has the skill to score the goals, but just a lot of the times he is extremely snake bitten, but hopefully he'll kind of turn that around in Carolina. But anyways, that's going to be it for me. Let me know what you guys think of the free agency signings in the comments down below. Do you like the direction that the Carolina Hurricanes are going in, or do you kind of disagree there? Let me know. And also, if you guys like this video, make sure to leave a like, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more hockey talk and mostly jersey talk. I mostly talk jerseys on this channel, but I do like to talk hockey as well. And also make sure to follow me on my Instagram and my Twitter at the Jersey Zone YT on Instagram and at the Jersey Zone on Twitter. Links are in the description down below. But like I said, that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.